Hello and welcome to my Odd Eyes deck profile. The ban list is finally released and I can release to you this list specifically without fearing anything is about to change because of a little bit, changing of stuff like LP and stuff like that, which didn't really change anyway, but the fear of these cards getting hit or cards getting back was there. But now I can finally release to you the list with that no problem whatsoever, because nothing will really change for this deck with the ban list. So I'm not sure if it's it's a good thing on the other hand, but on the other hand I'm kind of like, I really feel bummed that we didn't really get Electromite back. But regardless, we're going to jump right into it. After, I'm going to remind you the usual stuff, which is, subscribe to the channel and help support if you like to see more videos like this, and let me know in the comments down below, what do you think I should do to improve this list, as well as, let's try to get to 2,000 until the end of the year, because that will be quite awesome. Yeah, sure, we don't really have a whole lot of time left, but I still believe in us. But without further ado, let's jump right into the list. Alright, before we jump right into the list, let's talk about the deck price. And for the deck price itself, the only card that is absolutely expensive and you need to run 3 copies of it is this guy, which is around $15 a copy. For if you haven't ordered it a little bit before when it was 10, I think it's now stand at 15. It's the only really important card that you have to run at 3, and the rest of the cards that are expensive here, they have some alternative options, and I'm going to explain these once I'll get to them. They're mostly extra deck related, obviously, but we'll get to that when we'll get to it. Now let's jump right into the list itself. So for the list itself, we're starting things off with the triple copies of Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon, 3 copies of the Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon, 1 copy of Dissolver, 1 copy of original Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, 1 copy of Persona, and then the 1 copy of Odd Eyes Synchron. I decided to run these 12 specifically, or should I say not 12, 10. Sorry, I cannot count. But the point is, I decided to run these 10 specifically because of reasons, which we'll get to in a second. But now let's move, for the idea of the deck. So the deck itself is kind of functions the same way, at least I'm trying in a strategy. Kind of the same ways that I'm trying to do with Pendulum Magicians, that you kind of if you are going first, you're going to use the Scythe Lock and stuff like that. So if you haven't checked that video already and you want to see the idea for that deck specifically with the Scythe Lock, you're more than welcome to check that out. But this kind of does the same thing, but different in a ways that is more interesting. But I definitely think that Pendulum Magician, in terms of a spot, is definitely better right now, because of the fact that we do still miss Electromite, Fall Plus, Kokoba Joker, which are very, very important cards for the strategy, and kind of cards that we kind of miss. I'm going to be honest, the deck itself still misses some very key components from the ban list, which I'm really disappointed we didn't get back. But the point is, the deck itself is still very, very fun, and this is the number of Odd Eyes cards that you want to run. It's really debatable between 8 to 10, but I decided to go with 10 because every one of these cards have their own usage. So Revolution and Arc are definitely the 2 that you don't really see anybody argue with. Revolution is just, you discard it, pay 500, and you search any dragon, which is level 8 or lower Pendulum, not hard ones per turn. And then in the scale, the other effect that is important, you can pop it in the scale, and then it can revive a Dragon, Synchro, Xyz, or Fusion from your graveyard to your side of the field with effect intact. It's not negated, everything is fine, which making this card really, really great. And it's a card that you probably want to pick up because of the fact that I do have a feeling that this is going to skyrocket the moment that we're going to get Ghost in the Past with Dragunity, because this card is definitely amazing in Dragunity. This card does so much, and it's a card that I recommend to you to get your hands as soon as possible if you want to essentially play Pendulum decks before, of course, the Megatons and all that stuff, yada yada. Point is, this card is great. It does have additional effects, but mostly these are the 2 effects that you do care about. The rest of them, you could read about them, but I'm really not going to go into it because it's really doesn't matter for the rest of the effect. The point is, it's a scale 12 that allowing you to summon only dragons, can pop itself in the scale to do something, or essentially can discard it to search something. That's literally what it does. Then you have Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon. This one is maybe a vanilla, but it's really, really good. Also have a very, very good stats for its level. Very excellent Pendulum scale. And for the fact that it's if an Odd Eyes card is getting popped on the field, or scales, or anywhere, get popped,
you get the ability to summon an Odd Eyes directly from your hand, deck, or graveyard, which can be all of these. I think Revolution doesn't count because of the fact that Revolution can only be special summoned in a specific way, but the point is, this can summon any one of these, except from Revolution, including another name of itself. So just to let you know, it's really cool, but it summoned them to your side of the field, which is really nice. So you essentially use this effect sometimes, because the problem this deck faces right now at the moment, because we don't really get Electromite back, is the fact that, like, popping is really, really hard. You could go the route of popping, like, just, like, focus on it, but I found it to be inconsistent and not that great. The moment we'll get Electromite and stuff like that back, this card is going to be 100% the star again, but at the moment, it's like, it's just a great scale. It does what it need to do when, you know, we get to some certain situations, but at the moment right now, like I said, because we don't really have Electromite, it's kind of just okay, I guess. Then for the four rest of them, Dissolver is just great here because you summon it from your deck with the effect of Arc. That's pretty much what its idea is, and then you essentially, like, summon Vortex or whatever. Like, you specifically summon Vortex because it's help you deal with Nibiru and stuff like that. Or just a great card to have in the scale sometimes. Sometimes you don't care about the scale 4, and then you just clean your zones, and then you Pendulum Summon, and then you also get, like I said, protection from Nibiru. Or you summon it, and then you clear your scales. It really just have a lot of functions, and I really, really like this card. Then you have Original Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon. I like Original Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon more than Phantom because of the fact that it has synergy with Arc, and Phantom is really just good for the burn, and only if you're playing, like, really pure Odd Eyes, because you don't really going to have enough cards in the scale or in, like, you know, in play specifically for it to take advantage of what you need to do. So I do like Arc, or should I say Original Pendulum Dragon, a lot more than Phantom, to also have a synergy with Arc, and essentially just search it if I need to, which is really cool. Persona, great skill 1, or just a great summon out of your deck. You summon this to your side of the field, it's just a negation for extra deck monsters, really nice. And lastly, Odd Eye Synchron, because it's a tuner, and it just works quite wonders in the deck. But that's pretty much does it for the Odd Eyes. They need a little bit of explanation. Now we'll move on to the rest of the cards, which are going to fly up very, very fast compared to these 10, which are the following: 3 Supreme King Dark Worm, 1 Supreme King Gate 0, and then 3 copies of Curtain Raiser. This is a very self-explanatory thing, I think, in Pendulum deck, specifically in this deck currently. Like, you do need as much extenders as possible. You don't care if there are tuners or not, because of the fact that this deck kind of, like, need to put 2 monsters singles with Pendulum Magicians. So I do see some people in the comments telling me in Pendulum Magicians that I want this as well, which I came to the conclusion, yeah, you're right, maybe I'll find a way to incorporate this in a later update to the deck, so I need to think about that. But for the moment, Curtain Raiser, amazing, great card. And even if you open up with 2 of these, you can always just, like, juggle them around depending on the situation and what you want. So one of them will be the normal summon, one of them will be the special summon, whatever you specifically want to. But the point is, they're not really conflicting with each other as much as it sounds weird, because the point is, you just want to get 2 monsters on your side of the field, and then get a link off, and then just get your plays with a Pendulum Summon. That's pretty much what they do, and it's really great. I did want to run another Gate 0, but I kind of just really didn't find the space. I think Gate 0 additional one is great for this deck because of the fact that you kind of lacking low scales, but for the most part, you should be fine regardless. But now for the last Pendulum monsters, we're running triple copies of Chronograph, 1 copy of Time Gazer, 1 copy of Dragon Caller, 1 copy of Harmonizing, 1 copy of White Wing, and 1 copy of Celestial. This is a pretty random package for Pendulum Magicians, but I'm going to explain why. This one is kind of okay, it's kind of self-explanatory. This deck loves to pop stuff, so if you're able to pop stuff, which, like I said, it's not really the easiest thing to do, but if you're able to pop with your Sky Iris and stuff like that, you get the free special summon. If you open up with 2 of these, it's also just a free special summon. It's kind of really great. But as for these 4, what is the deal with these 4? Well, the point is, you want to have Pendulum Magicians, specifically because I felt like Pendulum Magicians are just, like, really searchable enough and kind of, like, synergize with the deck well enough to be played. And these 4 just felt to me the best, because Harmonizing kind of sucks, For the most part, if you don't really care, like if you care, like this is probably the only one that I want to cut down and maybe put another White Wing, because White Wing is good in this deck because the fact is you're not going to use Oath Effect to retrieve this back. So the card is like it's a little bit worse here, unlike pure Pendulum Magicians, because Pendulum Magicians, you're going to even just use this as a normal summon sometimes and then retrieve it with Oath. You're not able to do this here, so White Wing is the better option sometimes to search. But sometimes the advantage of harmonizing for summoning another magician from the deck kind of will help you push your Pendulum summons, or should I say, to your Appaloosa, and then just to your end board. So it's really depending on an intricate situation, so that's why I decided to run 1-on-1. Their tuner, that's pretty much what they serve here. Celestial, great way to search, and just great scale 8, and just generally just like great level 4. It's just pretty much what it does. And then Dragon Caller, I kind of didn't really have another one that I wanted to run, but the reason why I decided to run with this one is because of the fact it's a level 2, or should I say it's a scale 2, it's a level 7, it can turn things into dragons if you need to. I don't really run the LP thing, because of the fact that I also was really worried about the ban list, so that's why I kind of like didn't really test with it. But the point is like, it's a scale 2, it's great, I think it's just fine. It can be junky, but it can be whatever you want. I just like Dragon Caller more because it's allowing me also to summon Pendulum Summon back Time Gazer if I need to. But for the last two cards, we're running one copy of Scythe and one copy of Tuning. Honestly, you don't really need more than one copy of each of these. They're doing what they need to do. Tuning is actually a little bit worse in this deck because of the fact that you're not going to have two Pendulum Magicians in the scales, but it still does its job well done, so you do need to run at least one copy of it. It's more of like for extending situations or whatever, because like I said, you don't really kind of need a Haki Firebricks. Haki Firebricks is just important to just help you extend better, I guess, to kind of like, you know, play around Nibiru a little bit better. It's kind of like a weird situation. You don't really need to focus on this one, but if you want to, you're more than welcome to run it. So it's like, it's really depending on the situation. Then Scythe is just because of the Tornado Dragon package and all that stuff. Also, not really bad to open up with Scythe because this deck can pop stuff. And then for the spells themselves, we're starting things off with the Pendulum, with the Odd Eyes ones. We're starting with 3 copies with Spiral Flame Strikes, 2 copies of Sky Iris, and 1 copy of Terraforming. This is the lineup of the Odd Eyes spells that I felt is necessary. Kind of like Spiral Flame Strike is a great card to either pop or just essentially giving you a search for 4 targets, which is really great. It's not hard once per turn, and like I said, it's help you pop sometimes. You don't really use it to popping to yourself, but sometimes you do have to do that, but most of the time you're using this to pop to your opponent and like kind of help you break your opponent board. All you have to do is just even have a pendulum scale of like, you know, Arc activated in the scale, and then just start popping to town sometimes to your opponent cards, or you can just use it to search whatever you need. It's great. I love this card quite a bit. Then Sky Iris, you pop something, you get something. If you pop an Odd Eyes and you have Arc, you get a pretty nice synergy. Love this card, pretty great, but you don't want to run 3 of it because, like I said, we don't have Electromite back, and we don't really want to focus on the destruction that much. But it's still a great field spell up to this very day. In my opinion, it's still one of the top 10 best field spells. Like, it's just that good in my opinion. And then for the next of the supportive spells, I'm kind of hesitating to say this, but I do run 3 copies of Pendulum Call. I am considering cutting it down to 2 and maximizing on Duelist Alliance instead. I'm not really 100% sure about that, but we'll need to see. And then 1 copy of Dragon Shrine and 1 copy of Foolish Burial. These are the last spells I run. I don't run any draw power because specifically I didn't really find a spot, and I feel like always draw power is worse than actual cards themselves that do for you stuff. And this deck specifically don't really want to have cards that don't really do anything and just depend on chance, like draw power, so I really like these instead. Foolish Burial and Dragon Shrine, obviously, Dark Worm, so that's really good. And then these are just great for your pendulum stuff, and just generally, you don't really care sometimes discarding, so it's really depending on your hand, but most of the time you don't really care what you discard. If you discard a Dark Worm, that's better. But that's pretty much does it for the spells. Honestly, self-explanatory, doesn't really need to have so much explanation. But now we'll move on into the extra decks. So for the extra decks themselves, let's move on with the fusion first. The only fusion that we run, 1 Vortex, all you need. You just either make this with an Absolutes play, or you make this specifically with, you know, the Dissolver that I mentioned before. Synchros, we're running 3. We're running 1 copy of Dawn Dragster, 1 copy of Clearwing, and 1 copy of Borrowsword Savage or Borrowload Savage Dragon, or should I say Supreme King Dragon Clearwing. Anyway, all of these do what they need to do. Dawn Dragster is great because sometimes you're not able to summon like for a level 8 synchro, so sometimes you just go into this instead of Savage, and sometimes you don't even have a link in the graveyard, so Savage is kind of useless. Supreme King Dragon Clearwing is great in here because of the fact that sometimes you need this going second to just pop the entire board, or essentially proc your opponent negation to pop the entire board to then help you break their board. It's a great card. I like this card quite a bit. But for the XCs, we're running 1 copy of Absolute, 1 copy of Supreme King Dragon Dark Rebellion, and 1 copy of Tornado Dragon. These are, again, just really great cards. Absolute, just great card to, like, you know, make 2 level 7s, then you can summon Vortex with it, or whatever. Tornado Dragon, good for the combo. And then Supreme King Dragon Dark Rebellion is here because sometimes you don't get the Clearwing, or you can just get 1 hit, 1 punch, because of this card, so it's just really great to have as well. Honestly, the extra deck could be changed however you like, because the extra deck is in a little bit of a weird spot right now, but I still really much like it. As for the links, Cross Sheep, IP, Crystron Haki Firebrax, Artifact, Dagda, Selene, Unicorn, Appaloosa, and then Borrowsword Dragon, which could be access code if you have it. So, as for the extra deck mandatory cards, the only cards I would say like an absolute mandatory is Dagda. The rest of these can be changed however you want to. I really recommend to you to have the Appaloosa and the Haki Firebrax combo, but you can change this however you want. Cross Sheep is here because of the fact that sometimes you're able to summon an Absolute and then you use Absolute and another monster to then make the link to Cross Sheep and then you summon under it. It's kind of like a weird situation, not always happens, but sometimes it kind of like help you save yourself against Nibiru and kind of like still build a decent board. IP Masquerena, great card. Sometimes you don't really have the ability to do anything else but linking off into the IP, so that's really great with it. Haki Firebrax, just value. You don't really need to summon this every time. You don't even, sometimes I don't even use tuners to summon this, like, you know, just use them to summon the Dagda. Like, I'm getting the same things to essentially maybe bring Haki Firebrax, but I feel like I don't need Haki Firebrax because my hand is too good, or specifically I don't really need it. It's more of like I said, value. So the point is, you just get Dagda instead. It's really depending on the situation, on what path you want to take. Selene, the Haki Firebrax thing with it. Unicorn with IP. And then Appaloosa, because Appaloosa is just great interruptions. You get it with 2 or 3 interactions. And 1 copy of Borrowsword, which could be access code depending on your deck specifically. But, you know, Borrowsword is still a great option for those who are a little bit more on a budget. Or you can even run Borrowload. It's really, really up to you. But that's pretty much does it for the deck profile. Kind of took a little bit more time than I expected to, but the on-ice cards themselves do need explanation because these cards are not cards that you do see really often, and I want to explain my interactions with them the best possible, because this deck, like I said before, and maybe said it also a few times over, it's kind of in a weird spot at the moment, so it's kind of like a little bit weird to know what to do with it. So yeah, that's pretty much does it for my deck profile. For this particular situation, I kind of didn't really had the time to put a side deck for this one, so we're going to jump right into the next choices for the next video next week, which will be the next deck profile that you can choose from. So let's get to it. Alright, so for the next deck choice, itself, I do have 4 options for this one. Technically, one of them, which was supposed to be Salamangreats, I kind of like pushed it a week before because of the fact that, like I said a few times already, is that I was afraid because of the ban list changing few things, even though it didn't really change anything for the deck. So Salamangreat already have been done. If you haven't checked that already and you're interested in the Salamangreat video specifically, I made it. You can go check that out. It's the video previous for this. And anyway, for the decks themselves, I have an option for you. So for the first 2 decks that are going to be returning are going to be Dragunity and Predator Plans. These are going to be the 2 decks that I'm going to say specifically, if you want to see them, vote A for Dragunity, B for Predator Plans. C will be Monarchs, which you can revote as, like I said, C. And D will be Cyber Dragon. So if you want to see any of these 4,
specifically for your next deck choice, just type the letter that you want to see in part of your comment to just let me know this is the deck that you want to see, so we'll be able to essentially, just create in advance the deck and have a little bit more time before, so specifically just the list will be complete and I will not find myself in a situation that I don't really know what to do with myself. Because the first time I made this is that we had a tie between 3 decks, so we kind of had a little bit of a weird thing with it. But that's pretty much does it for the video itself. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Remember, creativity is the key in this game. Have a good day, stay safe, and yeah, like I said, Odd Eyes is a very interesting deck at the moment. And I do have some pretty interesting things planned as well for the next few weeks, because I'm kind of like a little bit in vacation, but weird vacation that is not like your holiday vacation for the rest of the world. My vacation is different because I'm in a different country that doesn't really celebrate Christmas. We celebrate something else, which is Hanukkah. So yeah, for me it's a little bit different. But happy holidays for everybody. This week, next week, whatever. If you're celebrating the 25th, if you're celebrating like me Hanukkah right now, happy holidays, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.